Hello, Taipei BJJ. We're here in Taipei, which I think the whole city's under construction today. It's a very annoying thing that happens in Taipei is when the weather gets incredible. It's so beautiful today, a nice spring day. Every single house goes under construction.
Yeah,
But we're here
like,
today. My friend Tarek comes to save my life. We come here to focus on something else.
yes, we are focusing on Jiu Jitsu. And how do you feel? How do you feel about wrist locks? Do you have any? Do you have any feeling? Any feeling that
Um,
comes to mind?
I mean, it's a good question. I was thinking about this just a moment ago, and there used to be a good phrase in jiu-jitsu that it's kind of antiquated, where they say that the choke is the king, armbar is the queen, and footlocks are the dirty little jokers. I think that's not true anymore. I think leg locks have ascended in it's so hard to talk with the sound. But I think wrist locks are the dirty little jokers. They're like the move people forget about. They're real, but like, come on. One notable exception was in the PGF season last week. A guy hit a wrister. This is the
Yeah.
only wrist lock that I like to do. It's when you have a full twister, arm behind your head, full control of the body. You're about to go for their head, but instead hit a wrist lock. And I think that's hilarious to get full control of somebody. You can snap their spine. You can go for a choke at any time, but instead you choose the wrist.
Because
Hilarious.
it's more, it's disrespectful.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a little bit more disrespectful. So, I don't know. There's an idea that wrist locks are kind of cheap. Some people don't like them. They might bring some emotion in people.
Yeah.
If you end a match on a wrist lock, or you end a roll on a wrist lock, some people might take issue with that. And why do you think that is? Why do you think the wrist lock is considered kind of a cheap move?
So what I don't like about wrist locks is they come on very fast and kind of can feel dangerous, oddly enough. Like I think the wrist is very fragile. It's a series of four bones here, and I've had it in my life where one of the bones comes out of place, and it takes a long time to heal and can really mess a lot of things up. If you're doing push-ups and then someone wrist locks you, not at the same time, I mean, but in your life, it can really cause lots of pain for a long time. And I don't know if that's what like bothers other people about it, but this is kind of what keeps me away from them. Because if they come on very fast, you don't really have time to tap. Um, I don't think that's what bothers other people. I
I
don't think that's
personally
the main
don't.
issue.
I think what bothers people is the wrist is kind of the next step up from a finger lock. Like it's not quite a small joint manipulation, but it's as close to a small joint manipulation as can be legal. I think the speed of wrist locks and the surprise of them,
Yeah,
because you kind of without if you don't expect wrist locks, you are always just gonna have your hands dangling
yeah,
around. And I have
always.
no problem with wrist locks. I have no issue with them. I think they're fine. I have no problem wrist locking somebody and feeling good about it. But I do, in training, I will always go for it slowly. I think the surprise the surprise makes the wrist lock more effective. If you do it fast, it makes it more effective. But yeah, in training, I try to do it slow, and I try to do it where generally I try to do a wrist lock where the elbow is on the ground, and I could kind of slowly leverage down on the wrist and give the opponent a lot of time to think about whether they want to tap or not. There's also the other wrist lock, in the gi, where the guy grabs your lapel and you kind of turn and the wrist turns this way.
Mm,
That's a really fast one, where you grab the elbow and you pull him into the gi. That's a really fast one. It only works fast, but it kind of, I see why people use it, even attack it, even if it doesn't work all the time, because it will make somebody hesitant to grab onto you. So I think it's a good move. I don't, like I said, I have no problem with wrist locks. I kind of find it funny, the idea that there's some moves that people find emotionally distasteful and
yeah,
bring about this thing where it's all. I think the finger thing, like grabbing fingers, is universally considered dirty. It's illegal in the sport. But
Dangerous.
if it were not illegal, I think generally people would find a way to deal with it. I mean, I think just in the same way that I came up with knee reaping being illegal and it being like this boogeyman that never do it. If your knee is ever reaped, it's just gonna explode into a million pieces. And then once I started training more like grappling rather than just jiu-jitsu, I've found myself in knee reap positions a lot. And there's times where you can tap and there's time to tap, and I don't think that it's like this, I don't know. I find it kind of silly that it is illegal or considered bad or cheap. I think maybe it takes some experience to be able to be familiar with these positions and for it to not be dangerous. And I think wrist locks should be there too. I think right now, can white belts wrist lock?
I believe
kids cannot wrist lock. I know as a white belt we were wrist locking. I don't know if they changed that rule, but as I said, I don't have a problem with wrist locks. There are some kind of higher order things that might be cheap. I found this cheap, especially as a white belt and a blue belt. We would have this guy come to visit us at Taiwan BJJ sometimes, and I had to be reminded with each first roll, because he was also a white belt with me. He would always start the first round and finish with a toe hold, which we weren't expecting because toe holds are illegal for white belts. In competition, in gyms, whatever, it's up to the coach to decide what the rules are. But he would always open up with a toe hold, and it would be like we would all look at each other and be like, "Oh yeah, this is the guy that does that."
Yeah, I think that's kind of rude, especially if he's not a good friend. Like if it's not like a close friend, it's good to follow competition rules.
Yeah.
Especially if you're visiting a place.
Yeah. He had visited a few times, and by the second or third time, we were like, okay, this is what he does. I didn't take as much issue with it the second or third time, even though he got me with it every time. But yeah, the first time it was just like, who is this guy? What is he? Why is he doing that? I didn't like it. Yeah. So that would be another thing that would be considered cheap, is doing things that are literally jiu-jitsu or grappling, but they are outside of the rule set that you're training for. Are there any other moves that you don't like? You showed me some gi moves that we talked about.
Yeah, so the big one that like I always have to work with is like a smother. So that's putting your hand over your opponent's mouth and nose. We learned this in high school wrestling, where like you can't hold it, but it's a sneaky thing. Everybody knows you can do it for a moment. And so if somebody's deep breathing, if you're deep into a match, if you do this, and you can mess them up a lot, like just messing up their patterns of breathing. In jiu-jitsu, some guys are more likely to hold it.
Yeah, you're allowed to hold it. Depending on the rule set, you're allowed.
Some rule sets you're allowed to.
Yeah.
And it creates just like instant panic. It's an incredibly like emotionally distressful thing to go through. And so I personally do it sometimes to troll my partners. I think it's funny, but I'll never hold it or try to get the tap, but just put it on there, pretend like I'm gonna poke them in the eye, and then go for something else. Nowadays, people are prone to getting in the mount and doing a smother choke, which is where you have their face.
Mother's milk.
Mother's milk somewhere like on your chest or in your stomach.
Smush their face right into your stomach.
And it's the same. It's the same idea of covering their mouth and the nose, but this time with this.
But it actually works.
That's an instant tap.
This one actually works. I find the hand on the mouth, I've never seen somebody tap to it.
No.
It's easy to break away from. It's a little bit rude.
Super rude.
For me, it's just kind of gross to have somebody's hand on my mouth. That's my only problem with it. As far as a technique to submit somebody, I don't see myself ever submitting to that. I mean, everything's possible. I could be possibly submitted by everything.
Challenge accepted.
I challenge you with clean hands to to smother me with your hands. It's something that I've never witnessed it working I think, yes, it can be frustrating, especially if you're already losing and you're breathing hard and you're already in panic mode. But the chest to the face, I use that sometimes, and it absolutely works. That's real. There are some other smothering chokes that they feel kind of cheap, but they're real. Like, so there's this one where you have the hand up. Our first video that we did was a smothering choke.
Yeah.
And it works really well. Use it quite a bit.
Especially if guys have bigger stomachs.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little flab.
If you're a fatty. Especially if you're like a slim guy, it's not gonna really work as well. But if you're a bigger guy and you have some boobies that you could shove somebody's face in, and you can keep their head steady, it really works. It's really offensive. The guy's gonna feel a little bit degraded after.
Yeah, and even if it doesn't work for a submission, it makes people panic. They give up arms, they'll give up their back.
Yeah, because you immediately can't breathe. You cannot even exhale. You cannot inhale or exhale. Yeah. It's just like I put a piece of plastic wrap over your face.
With like a gross rash guard too, like it's wet. Ugh.
Dripping.
Sucks.
Yeah. It's not a good feeling. It gives a feeling of panic, and some people don't like it. But I think it's kind of also hilarious that something like wrist lock would be considered cheap, whereas heel hooks, heel hooks were like Marshall said, the dirty what?
Used to be the dirty joker of Jiu Jitsu.
The dirty joker of Jiu Jitsu, and they're everywhere now.
Yeah, so they become ubiquitous.
Yeah. They're all over the place now, and it is close to a small joint manipulation, I guess. After wrist lock, toe hold would be the next level up, and then straight ankle lock. I think I've gotten a few straight ankle locks as a lower belt on higher belts, because it's another one of those surprising things where somebody's like, "Oh wow, you're gonna attack that? Like you're gonna attack that little thing?" We don't put a lot of value in any attack of small parts.
Yeah, because Jiu-Jitsu, we're trying to go for the neck, and if someone's not playing that game, it can be frustrating and confusing.
Yes, but it's your fault.
Yeah, if it's within the rules.
Yeah, it's also your fault. If you have this, if you're on this high horse and you get wrist locked because you were defending the choke and you got wrist locked, then that's too bad.
Yeah.
Too bad for you. What about stalling? How do you feel about stalling?
Stalling is my main thing I'm trying to combat. Me personally, I've never been accused of stalling. I think this comes from like having a high school wrestling mentality. High school wrestling, there's no time for stalling. You have short time, quick bursts of energy, go. And so when I joined Jiu Jitsu, I took this with me. So it's just attack, defend just enough to attack. And that's really the grappling that I appreciate, that I really like. I think the UFC is good about this. There's very rarely stalling in the UFC. Almost never see it. And Gi Jiu-Jitsu is almost all stalling. It's do just enough to where you can stall and win. That's kind of the winning strategy for most Gi Jiu-Jitsu. And I think that's terrible for the sport. I think it's not good for people's spirits. I think it's not good for trying to get people to watch our sport, trying to get people to join our sport. I think it sucks. Even yesterday, we had a guy joining us here on these small mats, and we're starting in half guard, and one of his moves is you'd stand up and walk away. And I was like, I gotta say something to this guy. Like, dude, we don't have that much time. We don't have that much space. Like, where are you going? Like, what's the benefit? And so stalling, I think it's one of the best things that we've seen from no-gi grappling competitions. We talked about the UFC Fight Pass Jiu-Jitsu events, as well as recently the PGF. And one thing that we really, really like is they call stalling very fast. They call stalling with penalties. And so, for example, in the PGF, you get called for stalling one time, that's a warning. Second time, someone throws a flag onto the mat, they stop action, and you have to start with the guy behind you. So the guy who's stalling starts in what we call a referee's position, just from high school wrestling. You're down like this, and the guy starts behind you, hand on the elbow, hand on the stomach, and go. So you're not quite on the back, but you're in one of the worst positions you could be in. It's like an almost turtle.
Yeah.
And I think that's fantastic. I love it.
Yeah.
One thing that Pride used to do is if you're stalling, you get a yellow card, and that means your pay is deduced. Like immediately. Like I forget what it is, like 10% off or something like that. I don't know the exact details.
That's rough.
Yeah.
Especially when you're really fighting with punches. It's not you're not just grappling. That's a rough one.
Yeah. And I really appreciate that. I wish the IBJJF had stalling calls. I think that would change everything for the better. I really, really do. Because some champions won't get called. You know, the Ruotolos don't stall. Mika Galval doesn't stall. But a lot of the old guard, you know, they do.
Yeah. So I mean, Gordon Ryan has kind of I wouldn't say a stalling style, but I
don't think so.
He has a slow, smothering style.
Yeah. I'd say it's more plodding.
Yeah.
Like, he never holds position for dear life, but he does move slowly through positions.
He's not as dynamic as say the Ruotolo brothers. He's not moving all the time.
Yeah.
He's not quite as entertaining as them to watch, but he is entertaining if you understand what he's doing, and you could say, how is he doing that to that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It's
he's
incredible.
entertaining in that sense. If you understand what's going on.
But get Gordon Ryan back to 6-minute matches, get him in the PGF. I think that'd be so awesome.
Yeah.
So incredible. Get him back to like his roots.
Just his wrestling.
Where he can't like decide how long matches are, which is his last couple matches. It's been him picking the rule set, picking the rules.
Yeah, because
picking his partners.
He's the cash cow. He's the cash cow of the whole sport right now. So if anybody can get a match with Gordon Ryan, that's probably going to be your biggest payday. And you got to play by his rules. So if he wants to do an unlimited match where he can drag it out to like 1 hour, that's you take that opportunity, because this is your time to get some exposure in a sport that not many people are looking at.
And it's worth noting that I did call out Gordon Ryan. He's been ducking me ever since. No messages.
He's getting closer to your size now.
He's losing weight.
He's losing weight. This would be a great time.
We have the same size arms now.
This would be a great time. Great time to go to match. What about what do you feel about just pain locks, bicep slicers?
I don't like them personally. You know, I think we can aim higher. Bicep slicers, I don't think I've seen many people tap to pain moves. I tap to them very fast.
I've been sliced a few times, and I tap. It's so painful.
I think they're great as setups. So, for example, from spiderweb, we go bicep slicer so that the guy releases his grip, and you can do an arm lock.
Or you could step on the arm and keep it in as a bicep slicer.
Right,
well.
and so I think that's one strategy, right? So Gio Martinez does that. He'll just go straight slicer.
Yeah.
I go loose slicer, so like it hurts, and then you have room to
let it go.
To let it go and go for the arm lock, which I believe to be a higher order of submission. I think we should always aim higher.
Yeah.
Full arm lock, full leg lock. And then even higher than that's choke. We should always be aiming for the choke. But in competition, if these things are allowed, you know, for example, one of the coolest things that happened was Charles Oliveira finished a calf slicer in the UFC. I think that's incredible. We've done a little calf slicer stuff here as well. But for me personally, I'm always using a calf slicer to set up the back or something like that. Give the person the opportunity to release the pressure in a way that advances my position.
Do you have any feelings about the calf slicer itself as a finisher, or do you
it's
think
beautiful? I mean, if you can actually calf slice someone, that's like so difficult and so nuanced and so like hard to do.
Like that ham sandwich finish?
Yeah.
I think it's a great finish.
Yeah, I think it's like incredibly difficult and beautiful, but we should still be trying to use it to sweep, get on top, take the back, finish a choke. It always has to be the goal, always. But in competition, do what you got to do. That's when things get tricky, less philosophical. But for me in my life, take the back choke.
I think generally we can agree. So even though I think these are all legit, choke is the king. I think we agree. Choke
Always.
is king, because the choke puts you to sleep. Other things are pain. Broken arm, pain. Everything else is pain. Other than putting somebody to sleep, everything else is pain. Let's see if we agree on this. just somebody in the, especially in training, anybody that's rolling just overly aggressively when this is not kind of a pre-agreed upon thing that we're gonna go hard. Like when one guy is just super aggressive, and not, when I say aggressive, I don't mean using strength, because I have no problem with people using strength, but people being rough, kind of falling, bumping, just snapping things on very fast.
I mean, dangerous.
Dangerous. Just kind of like,
yeah.
not. Dangerous is kind of a vague term.
Yeah.
I would say.
It's a good one. It's a good vague term.
It's a vague term, yeah.
Yeah. What are you trying to say?
I think in competition, you can expect a lot of aggression and you can expect danger in competition. Competition should inherently be more dangerous than rolling in the gym. Sure. And I think that rolling in the gym, sure, you could put on wrist locks and things like that, but you should not be aggressive with all of your moves. Everything should not be full speed, full power. You've got to give your training partner a chance to fall down properly, a chance to kind of protect themselves so that they can last.
Yeah.
Like hurting anything that might be hurting your training partner, or when you think that you are win at all costs in training it's not a very good modality, because it doesn't always really transfer over to competition.
Yeah.
Somebody who really trains hard and hurts their partners is not necessarily going to be winning competitions.
I don't know any high-level competitor who hurts their partners.
Yeah.
And I think one way to think about this, and it's not always obvious, but one way to think about it is like, we need to train in a way that doesn't jeopardize tomorrow's training. We need to train so that we can build our skills and sweat and build community, but we also need to train tomorrow. So
and
somebody's
both of us.
If somebody's everybody involved. So if somebody's grabbing my thumb, for example, we had to tell a guy like, hey, don't grab my thumb, because if I move the wrong way, it's broken. If I break my thumb, I can't train tomorrow. I can't do push-ups, yoga, jiu-jitsu. I can't do it. And so I think what you're getting at is if someone's coming in possibly spazzy or overly aggressive or nervous, it comes in lots of different ways. But what they're doing is jeopardizing tomorrow's training. So if somebody is trying to pass guard and their knee hits my nose and I'm bleeding, I can't train now. That's inappropriate. And I say that as a guy who has kneed some people in the nose.
Yeah.
I've been there.
I've accidentally split somebody's forehead.
We're not above
kneeing
it.
is passing. Yeah. It's just something to always be aware of. I've only done it once. I've kicked Marshall in the head a few times.
Yesterday.
Trying to invert, I kicked Marshall in the head.
And once happens, like, stop, are you okay? I'm sorry. And that one was no problem, right? It was like ankle to up here. No blood. Okay.
Yeah. Try not to do it again. Try to be aware of it. Like this is gonna happen. You're gonna bump into each other. I move this way. He moves the same way. We're going to clash.
Yeah.
We cannot anticipate each other's moves perfectly.
No.
But try to keep it as safe as possible in a sport that's already not that safe.
It's an incredibly dangerous thing we're doing. And so that's why these things, like, these are kind of cliches or maxims, and they're worth repeating all the time, like even just to ourselves. Like, don't roll dangerously. Sometimes I have to remind myself, because I like some, for example, flying techniques or something I saw online, some big roll, you do something. Like I love like diving on anacondas, and it's not always appropriate. So I love like getting a Kimura and flipping my partner over. I showed that in Kaohsiung this weekend. And even in Kaohsiung, I had to stop drilling, not just rolling, drilling, because people were flipping into each other. It's like, all right, you're not in pairs anymore. You're in groups of 4, more space, do it more beautifully, safer. So safety has always got to be number one. And so any cheap move that you can do safely, I say allow it. But if you're snapping wrist locks on people and they're hurting their wrist, that might not heal for a long time, especially if someone doesn't understand how to heal their wrist, which, like, how many people know that already? Heel hook's the same. I have no problem with heel hooks. I heel hook everybody all the time. I don't mind people do it to me.
Yeah.
But I do warn people about doing it to other people. You know, when I go
Yeah.
to Taiwan BJJ, I don't slap it on people, especially if we're in the gi or something. Like,
Yeah.
it's just better not err on the side of caution.
And you've got to be willing to let them go. You've got to be willing to know that if I dive on this submission, I could probably get it. But let me crank this heel hook very slowly.
Yeah.
Give him time to tap, and by giving him time to tap, you're also giving him time to escape, which is not great. But you don't want to surprise somebody and hurt somebody, especially if you don't know how familiar they are with this position.
Yeah, so the closer friends you are, the more you know what they can handle.
Yeah.
I've been rolling a Tark long time. I can go a little harder on him sometimes. I can squeeze harder. I'm so good at flying through the air. Things like this we can do to each other. Whereas someone else comes in, I'm not gonna toe hold this guy. I'm not gonna keep a heel hook. So, for example, with heel hooks, one thing I do is I'll try focus on the control, right? If you can control their hips, you can control their leg, and then look at the heel hook. Okay, I got it. Look at them in the eye, and see what they're doing. If somebody's like panicking, I let go. If they're looking at me, I look at them, and I go a little harder. And if they don't tap, I let it go.
Yeah.
Catch and release is the phrase with heel hooks.
Yeah, I feel, and I do this with arm bars too. I'm a little bit queasy about arm bars for some reason. I think because I've seen arms getting dislocated by arm bars, and it's
super possible.
It's traumatized me a bit. So I go a little bit easy on arm bars. I don't really hip into arm bars as much as I could.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm just trying to protect who I'm training with, because we got to train tomorrow, and winning in the gym, it doesn't
translate to anything.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. Winning or losing in the gym, it doesn't. It's
win or lose, train tomorrow.
Yeah.
And not always train jiu-jitsu, but train something. Train your body, train your mind.
It's just training. Yeah.
Just keep training. We just train to keep training. That's it.
We have this letter, a letter.
Fan mail.
Yeah, we had a question: how to not regress and keep with jiu-jitsu during injuries. Torn MCL.
Oof.
Which one is it? I'm thinking of ACL. ACL, and what is the MCL? And how to stay active. Part of the knee too, right?
Maybe that's in the middle. What is it? Like ACL's on one side,
ACL
LCL on the other side?
goes through it's through the center of the knee. Let me look up the MCL.
Yeah, so this is a big knee injury, how to not regress. So, with knee injuries, recovery is most important, of course. I hope, this is coming from Sasha.
That's the outside.
I hope you're getting some physical therapy. I have no advice on how to do that. I don't know. But how to not regress, I mean, the big thing is watching jiu-jitsu. And one thing that I read a lot is mental reps really count for a lot. There's one example, this sounds made up and I can't prove it, but the classic example is a man in jail who loves golf, sitting in his cell thinking about golf, gets out of jail and plays great golf. I don't know if this is a true story, but the image is nice, and
Sounds
it's
magical.
supposedly backed up by science. George St. Pierre says this a lot. And I do this before competition when I'm getting nervous, right? Getting nervous, I'm already training as much as I can train, right? I'm not gonna go dive into rolling, but I can sit there and go over my moves. Okay, so what are the details of this move? Okay, foot on the hip. Okay, knees to hips to knee. How to do a leg lock. Oh yeah, it's like this. And so mental reps really are valuable. They really help a lot. And so what happens to me sometimes when I'm doing too many mental reps, they'll go into fantasy. Like, okay, then I'll just do this. I'll just get on top.
I'll just throw them and I'll just suplex them.
And so one thing you can do is watch an instructional. For example, Danaher has a lot. If you don't know how to watch instructionals, they're on billybilly.com, Chinese YouTube. They're all there.
Yeah.
And there's also YouTube videos, TAIPEI BJJ. We put out a lot. And so you can watch a video and then stop it, close your eyes, and picture yourself doing this. And that's actually a very good way of priming your body for once you're back on the mats.
Mirror neurons.
Mirror neurons. It's a great term.
The same way that when you see somebody get their hand crushed in a door, you go, you almost feel it, you grab your own hand.
Even just saying that.
Yeah, mirror neurons. Or you see somebody get kicked in the balls, and you go, oh.
Yeah.
And for those of you that don't have balls, imagine any other injury, like elbow, whatever.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some good that comes from mentally imagining what is going to happen. An MCL, good news. Well, because I was looking up ACL when I first read this. So MCL seems slightly better than. MCL seems slightly better than ACL.
In terms of recovery?
Yeah, in terms of recovery. Do you know if Sasha has had this issue for a long time?
I don't know details. I mean...
It says, the time it takes to recover from an MCL tear depends on how severe the tear is. Grade 1 MCL usually heals within 1 to 3 weeks.
Whoa.
Grade 2 moderate MCL tear generally takes 4 to 6 weeks to heal with treatment. Grade 3 severe MCL tear can take 6 weeks to heal with treatment. So the deal is you got to get treatment.
Yeah.
And you got to wait it out too. Like I've had this. Let me see. I've taken 2 months off of jiu-jitsu at times, like completely, because just knowing that if I go, I'm gonna have problems. And don't roll.
Yeah.
Whatever you do, don't roll. The problem with rolling. Not only is it chaotic and you don't know which direction it's going to go, it's that once you're a little bit healed and you start to feel warm and you get into it, you feel fine. So that feeling of feeling fine is your downfall. So
yeah, some things get dangerous.
Yeah. You start to feel fine, you start to get a little bit confident, and you don't favor the injury as much. So personally, I would stay away from jiu-jitsu altogether, but that's just how I do.
Yeah.
I stay away from it. If you want to go back to it, I would just gently do whatever exercises are considered good physiotherapy for that injury. I might even drill a little bit. So choose a good drilling partner, somebody you know very well. But also keep in mind that even with the drilling, you are taking a risk.
Yeah, everything's going to be a risk.
You're taking a risk with drilling, but absolutely do not roll. Absolutely do not roll, even if it's, let's flow, bro. Don't even just flow.
Who can you trust?
Yeah. Absolutely do not drill. Possibly, I said drill. Yeah, possibly
roll.
Drill. Absolutely do not roll. Possibly drill. I would just do something in the gym. You could watch jiu-jitsu. I would stay away from it for whatever the amount of time is that it takes to heal.
And I think, like, safety-wise, one of the best ways to get back in after taking a break from training, I say I'm a little biased, a little selling, but private lessons are like an incredible way to get back in. All the stuff that's been on your mind. Hey, what about this? Hey, what do you think about this? How does this feel? Can be an incredibly safe way to get back in if you have the money to do it.
This is true.
And if you're looking for some guys in Taipei to do private lessons with, I recommend number 1, Tark, and number 2, Marshall. Taipei BJJ guys.
The good thing about private lessons, if let's say you have an injury, let's say you have this knee problem, we could just do all armbar. Armbar from side mount, and that's all we're training today, and we're just going to do repetitions. Guillotine, repetition, stuff that requires sitting down, rear naked choke, just drilling, drill. So you can do this where in a big class you cannot choose the direction that the class is going to take. You cannot,
the speed.
Yeah, you cannot say to the coach, hey coach, today I know that we've been doing X guard for the last week, but today can we just like practice being on the back and sinking in the rear naked choke.
Just Wristlocks, coach.
It's not going to happen. Yeah, so that's
especially
what
at Taiwan BJJ. Can you imagine telling Makoto, like, hey, Change the lesson, coach.
It would be very disrespectful. I feel disrespectful even thinking about it.
We're gonna apologize for mentioning it.
Makoto, I was thinking about something very disrespectful.
So sorry.
Very sorry. Yes. I don't think it's a good idea. So, yeah, injuries are rough. It's hard to rest, but if you know guys that are injured a lot, they're probably the guys that don't rest. Like the guys that have recurring injuries. If you have a guy that's injured and you don't see him for 2 months or longer and he comes back, there's a chance that he may recover from that injury. But if a guy has a very high level injury and you see him in 2 weeks and he's back on the mats, all taped up, there's
and going hard.
Yeah, there's a chance that he's going to re-injure it, and this is going to be a recurring thing, and we have to get old. So, I mean, I have a knee injury that I got boogie boarding of all things. You don't even use your knees for boogie boarding, but I could still feel it today, and this was, I don't know, 15 years ago. And as we're getting older, we're going to collect these injuries, and they're not going to go away forever. I mean, they get better. I'm fine. I don't feel the soreness that I felt before, but I don't feel the same as before.
Would you say, like, just guessing, that the chance of re-injury is higher there than on the other knee?
Yes, I would say the chance of re-injury is higher on this knee than the other knee.
Yeah.
And I favor this knee. I might not shoot double legs with that knee. Yeah, so it changes the way I train, and it should.
Yeah.
I think you should train. You cannot assume that you're a perfect robot. Live in reality. We're here to have fun. We're here to train.
I'm sorry, my reality is I gotta run to the bathroom. I'll be right back. Drank a lot of tea today, guys. 等我一下.
This is live TV. Yeah, I would say, like I mentioned before, that is my superpower. I can take off a long time from training. I inadvertently took off 3 years. That was not on purpose, but I came back. I always stay in the gym. So if you have another way that you can work out, that would be great. Something that doesn't involve moving around. So if it's a knee injury, I would take up something that doesn't involve moving around. So don't go out and play ball or ping pong or anything that requires high level or high speed lateral movements. That would be my best advice. And we have one more question. It says, where is it? What is your favorite recovery method when dealing with sore muscles? Asking for a friend. Recovering from sore muscles, I'm not. We'll have to ask Marshall this one. I do get sore muscles quite a bit, but for me, it's just time. I like to use ice. I think the jury is kind of out on ice. We did this training course last week or the last 2 weeks, a Jiu Jitsu training course, where one of the studies showed us that ice doesn't really work for injury recovery. We actually got two different opinions from 2 different medical experts or physio experts. One said there's a study showing that ice has no effects on recovery. The other said that you can use ice. As long as you're not overboard with it, you could use ice for the first day after the injury or the soreness, and then in days following, after I think it's 48 hours, then you would switch to heat. I'm not sure. I think placebo effect is an important effect. So ice is that placebo effect for me. I don't know if it works or not. I've always heard that it works, so I like to use ice. I'm on this question here. What's your favorite recovery method when dealing with sore muscles? Asking for a friend.
Sleep.
Sleep?
Number 1.
Sleep is number 1. Yes, sleep is very important. And sleep is very, very neglected in our society. I think we have a lot of what's this called? Like, I think people pride themselves on not sleeping. Like, you know,
I think that's absolutely
I only
insane.
get 4 hours a day.
Oh my
Sleep.
God.
I'll sleep when I'm dead.
Mental illness.
Sleep
I
is
see.
the cousin of death.
Yeah. How
Sleep
many
is
people
the
grew up
cousin.
on that?
Sleep. Yeah, I grew up on that.
Yeah.
I grew up on that. So
Yeah.
sleep is the cousin of death. I sleep when I'm dead.
Oh my
sleep
God.
is for pansies.
Ugh.
What are you still sleeping?
Yeah.
And it's funny because
crazy.
there is some shame associated with sleep. Like the phone rings and sometimes I'll be like, hello, 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 hello. I don't want to show people that I'm sleeping, you know, or I'm at home taking a nap and wife comes through the door and I wake up and I pretend that I wasn't sleeping. Like, I wasn't sleeping. I was just doing some things around the house. Yeah, I'm always working. Yeah, because I was raised like that, so it's hard to shake it.
Yeah.
It's hard to shake this.
And I go through this too. You know, quite often before this show, we'll be texting the night before. We both work until the night, and then around 10, 11, sometimes 12 o'clock. And I'm always like, should I tell them I'm going to sleep? Like, just cut off conversation.
Go to bed.
Yeah. Like, sorry, man. Like last night, I was asleep at like 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little something else. I was a little sneezy yesterday.
Yeah.
My body very sore. And now I wake up feeling great.
Sleep is good.
Back in this.
Yeah, sleep is very important.
And it's tricky. Like some people just aren't blessed with good sleep.
Yeah.
And lots of reasons, you know. We live in a city, sometimes there's noises. You know, that one gets me a lot, noisy neighbors.
There's light everywhere. Like
Lights,
the city is always this city is always awake. You can go out and get a meal anytime you want in Taipei. Like 4 a.m. if I wake up, there's somewhere a 24-hour restaurant not that far away where I can eat, and there's going to be people there.
And even lights, this is one thing that's bothering me. I'm strategizing what to do about it. Across the way from me, there's a very bright light that shines into my house, and so my house is lit up at all times. And so I'm pretty crafty. I put blankets over my eyes and have different things like that. But having light in your sleeping area that you can't control is like one of the big things for like insomnia. And so that's a real thing. This guy asking this question, I know he has a daughter. That's a whole nother factor. I don't know any details, but I just know I can imagine having kids is like it's a whole thing in terms of sleeping. You know, they might need you, or you might feel pressure to do something, or
luckily,
it can come in lots of ways.
The
right?
lucky thing about kids, especially once they're like school age, is they actually need to sleep more than you do. If you have the habit of putting them to bed early, you're gonna get your sleep. I think for most adults, the sleep problem comes from being in bed with the phone. And I find that people that do have sleeping problems, if you ever really go to a place where you have nothing else to do but sleep. So I once went to this island in Cambodia. Not to say that everyone needs to go to some island, but just this experience of this island. There was no electricity. I think there was no electricity was only from something like 5 to 9 they had electricity.
Oh wow.
And then the rest of the time there's no electricity on the island.
Oof.
And
sounds great.
the strange thing is I thought that I would hate it, and I thought that this is going to be a problem. How am I going to live there? And by the end of our time there, I think we spent 5 days. I was hoping to spend more time, but I didn't end up spending time because I think to take money out of their ATM, it was like $30 or $50. Like they had like a ridiculous ATM charge. I'm like, this is stupid. Let me just go back to the mainland. But yeah, I wasn't expecting to enjoy it. And what I did find was that because I'm going to bed with the sun now, by 9 o'clock, I'm drowsy, and by 9:30, everybody's asleep. Like we were all asleep. I didn't imagine that I would be just like out like a light, like 9, like oh man, I'm having a hard time staying awake, and then I'm out. Even like camping is hard to say because We're mostly doing glamping. There's lots of lights. There's music. We're staying up. So I wouldn't
There's
say
Taiwanese
that's
families
I
yelling
wouldn't
at the
say that's a
children.
real barometer. But yeah, if you really leave, if you ever leave the city and you're around, kind of have to follow the natural light cycle, you will find that you'll get tired pretty early. And I don't know. I'd be interested in knowing how much sleep problems there are in I guess like nomadic societies.
Good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how I would ever know that, but
Yeah. So I would say I like ice. Sleep is very important, and for recovery, I don't know if this is recovery, but there's a thing that called active recovery, which I don't fully understand, but I'll make up my understanding. I like to always do some kind of moving exercises. So
Yeah.
I like the gym. I like to always keep moving, and soreness is okay. Soreness is just, for me, proof that I've done something. I don't need to always be really sore, but I always expect to have a little bit of soreness in my life, and I accept it and I embrace it. If I'm fully recovered, no soreness, no feeling of any discomfort whatsoever, I think that's a little strange for me.
yeah, and everyone will have their own barometer of
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
And so a little active recovery, that could be stretching, you know? Stretching is a good one to just kind of let yourself know if there's an actual problem or if you just exerted yourself. A little bit of yoga, a little qigong, you know, I've been doing this one super good. Getting your arms straight out, making little circles. This helps like break up any tension here. Because a little soreness is no problem, but it's a slippery slope to injury. And so having that, like at least knowing if you go out for a walk and you like can't do it, like okay, that's something else. And so teaching your body a little bit of what's going on is always helpful.
Rest is underrated. But if you are new to any kind of exercise regime, you have to expect some soreness. If this is the first time,
It's the only
if
way.
this is the first time you've been training, and I used to always get this anytime I took breaks from Jiu Jitsu, especially in the gi, I would have this pain right in between my shoulder blades. I think probably from pulling on the gi, and that's something that I would come to expect. So, if you're new to any sport or any training, you're gonna be sore, and the soreness is going to it's gonna go away over time. There's still always gonna be some, but it's never gonna be like
Debilitating.
yes. Craig Jones. What do you tell me about this Craig Jones news that you
I don't know
showed
what's
me?
up with I can't
Is
tell
it
if this
real?
is real, but I think it is, man. He keeps going on about $1 million prize money for jiu-jitsu tournament.
So Craig Jones is kind of he's one of the highest level jiu-jitsu practitioners in the world,
Absolutely.
but he's also a super high level troll.
Absolutely. And so that's why, like, when he first started mentioning it, I wasn't sure, but he's showing, like, he has, like, a crypto account with, like, $1 million, and he's doing lots of stuff in Bali with the Al Leone crew, which I've heard from an insider in Bali that it's a Russian billionaire who's just, like, putting lots into jiu-jitsu. And so with that kind of backing, something like this becomes possible. He's been spending lots of time in the Middle East, you know, lots of money floating around. And so what he's saying is, since ADCC pays $10,000 for the champion, he wants to put up $10,001 for every participant in this tournament with $1 million prize.
16-man tournament.
And what this sounds like to us is that he's putting on a tournament for Joseph Chen to get $1 million. Even in the video, Joseph Chen's just kind of there. He's just kind of like the scooter guy. He's kind of the right-hand man. They're working a lot together.
Yeah.
And Joseph Chen, you know, he might be the best guy in jiu-jitsu right now. You know, it's a little hard to say, but on any given night, he could definitely beat whoever else we consider to be the best. And so it's something to keep our eyes on. You know, there's no date, there's no bracket, there's no location, but
It would be crazy. 10,000 to show, a million to win.
I mean, that's like how long did it take MMA to get to those numbers? Like, how long did it take
20
boxing?
years. Yeah,
like,
20,
when's the first
30.
time boxing had that?
Yeah.
It takes a long time, and so if this is real, it's absolutely historical, and if it's not real, then it's pretty funny. You know? So I don't know. It's something to keep our eyes on. He's been doing this on Instagram. The big thing is that he's out of ADCC, which also kind of feels like a joke, but I guess it's real. And Craig Jones, he's kind of operating in his own stratosphere. Like I don't get it. I guess he's doing all right, cruising around doing seminars and things.
I guess he makes money from seminars and
from
the gym.
DVD sales. Maybe he makes some from the gym at B Team, but he's not there a lot. You know, he's abroad most of the time. He's cruising with Joseph Chen, who's doing kind of similar lifestyle.
Joseph Chen is, what would you say, his his apprentice?
Something like that. Yeah. Like, young partner. I don't know. But yeah, I think they're in business together. Joseph Chen goes deep with the Al Leone character, which, you know, doing a little digging online doesn't come up with stuff. But like I said, we have an insider in Bali who goes to parties with these guys and says, like, it's, you know, a lot of money flowing through. So yeah, something to keep our eyes on.
It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
We got UFC 301 coming up this weekend.
Yeah.
Alexandre Pantoja versus Steve Ursig.
This is such a funny one, man, because nobody is almost feels like not a real event. This is like a fight night level event.
Well,
but
coming off of 300, which is probably the best UFC ever.
And so they kind of used up all their big matchups. But this one's super interesting, man, because Steve Ursig has only been in the company for a year. He got a short notice fight less than a year ago. Came out and knocked a dude out. I don't know how many times he's fought since. 2, maybe. And Pantoja is like a legit dominant champion. He's kind of what we think about when we think about champions. He's Brazilian. He's got daddy issues. He's fighting for his family. He's like the perfect fighter. And Steve Ursig is like the inverse, man. He's talking about how he's wanted to fight because he saw Brock Lesnar doing it, thought it was cool, and so he asked his dad, and his dad like bought him a gym. It's like just a crazy and he's like, yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
It's fun. He teaches kids classes, just kind of like showing them like the kids are terrible. It was like, He's like, oh, so good.
Yes.
And he's just this goofy dude who's found himself in this crazy position and is just like embracing it, just like, yep. I deserve to be here. I'm the best in the world. I'm going to show everybody.
That's very cool.
I'm in Rio, fighting for a title. Watch. And it's so funny, man. And so I'm very excited for this one. I imagine Pantoja will be a huge favorite to win, especially in Rio. Oh. But Steve Ursig, man, like he's such a goofy dude who can fight. And it's not clear why, it's not clear how, but he has a real chance in this one. And co-main is Jose Aldo. Jose Aldo, we all thought he was retired. I think he was retired.
The King of Rio.
The King of Rio. From the streets of Rio to sleeping on the mats of Nova União to, you know, I imagine he's a multimillionaire at this point. Still just kind of riding a scooter around town, still kind of being low-key, real man of the people, and everybody's favorite fighter is
he has my favorite moment in the UFC. Well, there's so many, but I think he is... One of my favorite moments is, who did he beat? What was it? Chad. I think he beat Chad Mendes.
Twice.
Chad Mendes knocks him out in Rio, and then he jumps over the fence and he runs out into the crowd, and he's like being carried by the crowd, and you're seeing the whole crowd rallying around and like, it was that like
absolutely.
I get goosebumps talking about it. It was one of those like, wow. One of those moments where like the emotion was so high. Right after the knockout, jumps out of the ring, runs out, like
incredible.
Awesome, yeah. He's an older guy now. He's been looking really good lately.
Yeah.
But this is another case of an older fighter with a newer up-and-coming guy.
An up-and-coming guy who we don't know much about, but he's a tough fighter. You know, he's in the UFC.
Jonathan Martinez.
This is a big chance for that guy. And you never know. You know, legends always hit a point where things can turn sad.
Yeah.
And Jose Aldo, he hasn't shown signs of that, but you never know. So... Hope it's okay.
I hope it's good for Jose. I would love to see Jose, and he hasn't fought in a while, so this is like a return of Jose.
Yeah.
Anthony Smith, who I would guess Anthony Smith is close to retiring.
I would hope so, man.
Anthony
Look
Smith.
at that record. His record's 37-19.
37-19.
He's lost 19 times.
So Anthony Smith versus Vitor Petrino, and this
Yeah.
is just the exact case I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Up and coming, undefeated fighter.
Vitor Petrino, 11-0.
Yes. I don't know if that looks good for
Against old man Anthony Smith.
Good luck.
Anthony
Good luck,
Smith,
Anthony
he does
Smith.
like commentary and like analysis. So you can imagine like he's in a suit, like, oh, time to go fight.
Yeah.
That's not how it's actually gonna go, but in my mind,
Yes.
it's like that, which is very dangerous. If your attention is split, you have other jobs.
Yeah,
then you fight.
He's
hard.
quite active online, so he seems quite active in media, and he seems to have quite a few other jobs. So
Yeah.
I think it may be time. Not that I should say when it's somebody's time, but
Nobody knows.
but for Anthony Smith, he's got other streams of income. He has other ways. He's a good talker.
Yeah.
Yeah, at light heavyweight too. Good luck to Anthony Smith with the undefeated up and coming fighter. Anything else big on this? Paul
That's
Craig.
the big one. Paul Craig is always awesome to watch. He's got the most dangerous jiu-jitsu guard in MMA, probably. He broke Jamal Hill's arm from his guard. He has like, it's kind of a meme where he gets like destroyed and the final seconds pulls out a triangle. He's done it a couple times. And so him against a young Brazilian man is always awesome. Fighting a guy named Kyle Boalo.
15-1.
And so this is a dangerous fight for both of them. Definitely worth watching. And again, this UFC is coming in under the radar, especially in the shadow of UFC 300. There was talks of Alex Pereira headlining this card, which sounded insane from the start. It didn't happen.
Yeah. We
Any
probably couldn't put
flyweight
together.
head card is always going to be under the radar.
Yeah.
And I'm actually quite excited for this one. I'll be tuning in, watching every fight on the main card.
Yeah,
I'll watch everything.
Pantoja's fun. I mean,
Pantoja's
he's
awesome.
a little bit chaotic.
Yeah.
Alexander Volkanovski was talking about how he sees Steve Erceg possibly winning just because
could.
of
He has a
how
chance.
he has. In Volkanovski's mind, Erceg has kind of a sharper style, whereas Pantoja is a little bit chaotic in his way. I think in the last few fights I've seen with Pantoja, there are moments where it looked like he was going to lose the fight, where he comes back. So
Yeah.
this will be interesting. I'm especially looking forward to seeing what Jose Aldo looks like in this match.
Oh my god. Yep. Hope it goes well. Hope he doesn't get hurt.
That's it.
We all done?
Yes, sir.
Cool. Now, one person watching, I think that's us. I think we are our viewers. So if anybody's catching the replay, appreciate you.
Thank you.
TAIPEIBJJ.com. Marshall Stamper, Tarkfin. We do private lessons in Taipei. We sell rash guards. Stay tuned. Os.